And go ahead and get started. So my name is Patrina Probst, and I'm the Director of ADA and Student Access and Disability Services here at ECC. And I'm delighted that you're joining our workshop on advancing inclusion, student perspectives on accessibility and next step. We are pleased to be joined by two students who are going to share their experiences with using assistive technology to navigate online course materials. And following the students' demonstrations of their assistive technology, Bhumika Bergman will share helpful tips on how we can create accessible digital materials. So I'm going to share my screen with you. So did you know that 1 billion people, or 15% of the world's population, experiences some form of disability? It's a pretty high number, and that also is a reason why we need to make sure that all of our materials are accessible for this large population of people throughout the world. So first off, we are joined by Jess Heiser. Jess, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jessica Heiser. I am majoring in social work and I have a physical disability.
And Jess uses a speech to text software or a speech recognition software program called Dragon Naturally Speaking. So we are going to show how Dragon works, how Jess turns on Dragon. Jess is going to show us how she turns the microphone on and off using Dragon Naturally Speaking.
So right now the microphone's off because it's red. And right now I have to click on it to turn it on because it won't detect my voice. Right now it is on. And if I want to pause to turn it off, I just say, go to sleep, wake up. And that's how it works.
And as you can see on this slide, the microphone changes color depending on what commands Jess is dictating to Dragon. Jess is going to show us how she turns. So next, we're going to show a demonstration on how Jess uses Dragon to take a quiz on D2L. So Jess is going to her quizzes in D2L and selecting Demo of Dragon Quiz. She will start the quiz. The quiz is loading. The first question is a short answer question. Describe the assistive technology that you use to access the computer.
Wake up. I use Dragon Naturally Speaking. Period. Go to sleep.
The next question is a written response question. How does assistive technology help you in your life?
Wake up. Dragon Naturally Speaking helps me in my life by allowing me to complete in-class assignments as well as out-of-class assignments independently, period. It is hard for me to type with my disability, and the only other option I have is to talk, period. This assistive technology helps me do the assignments that any other able-bodied student would do by turning my speech into text, period. Go to sleep.
Now, Jess is going to read through the text and correct any spelling or grammatical errors. Dragon typed 2 periods instead of 1, so Jess deleted one of those additional periods. Dragon also created additional spaces in between words, so Jess deleted the additional spaces and corrected the spelling of one of the words using the spell checker. She typed able-bodied instead of able-bodies. She added an S at the end of students. And then she also changed turning to the correct spelling because Dragon added an additional G to the spelling of turning. And then Jess will submit her quiz. So Jess also wanted to make sure that she mentioned that Dragon isn't always cooperative. So Jess, would you like to add some comments about that statement?
Yeah, so that recording was after we practiced it a couple of times, and after we practiced it, it got better. This is the first time I used the Dragon, and if I'm going into a time quiz where I have to type a written response, I don't have multiple times to like exit and go back into, so this is what I normally have to deal with, where it mixes it all together, misspelling and everything.
So Jess, describe a little bit more about your accessibility preferences.
So I prefer Word documents or PDFs over HTML pages. The reason for this, and you can see this in the picture, is when I try to enlarge the HTML page so I can read it better, it enlarges the text, but I have to go from left to right. So it also cuts off the text, which makes it even harder to read, where when I enlarge it on a PDF or Word document, it keeps going down. So it goes with the natural flow of reading.
What are some other accessibility preferences that you prefer?
So some other things are that if we're doing notes in Zoom for classes, I prefer them to be typed and not handwritten because it's easier for me to read. And if I have a note taker, I know that they'll be able to read it better. So I know I'll be getting good notes and not have to worry about it later if they miss something. For in-person classes on a board, I prefer the colors black and blue because they're easier to see. Again, for the same reasons, it's easier for me to see, and also for somebody who's taking notes, it's easier for them to see. And do you want me to mention the graphics or should we talk about that later?
Oh, sure, you can mention the graphics.
So for like different graphs for tests and quizzes, use darker colors and not brighter colors like a bright red or bright yellow. It's just hard to see the numbers. So for D2L announcements, some professors that I've had put like a weekly announcement where it's like, this is what we're doing this week, and they'll talk about the quiz and like a paper. And it's really hard for my eyes to read. So I would suggest making a separate announcement for each thing. So if you want to remind us about a quiz, put the quiz in a separate announcement and list everything that's going to be on the quiz. This is also helpful for me to see if I need my Dragon open or not. Because if I have to open it during a quiz, sometimes it makes it freeze and it takes up more time. And that's not really helpful.
Thanks, Jess, for sharing about your experiences. Next, we're going to be joined by Josh Weinstock. Josh, would you like to introduce yourself? So Josh is one of our students, and Josh is blind and uses screen reading software called JAWS and refreshable Braille display. So I'm going to show a demo of how he uses JAWS to access a quiz on D2L. Josh is going to give us a demo of JAWS screen reading software and his refreshable Braille display. So Josh is going to show us how he navigates to Google Chrome and then accesses D2L.
So I'm a completely blind person, so I'm gonna show you how I use a computer. So we're in a Zoom meeting right now, so I'm gonna share my screen. When we use a computer, when we're blind, we always use the keyboard. So and we can press various keys on the keyboard to do certain things. We also have something called the refreshable Braille display, which will allow us to see to read what's on the screen in Braille. So it's right here. I'll hold it up. And you can read the Braille cells here. And then there's a keyboard. It's actually a Braille keyboard that you can actually write in Braille as well. So right now, I'm going to share my screen by pressing Alt-S on the keyboard. And then I'm going to press Tab to make sure that the sound is getting shared. And then I'm going to tab to the share screen button and press enter.
Started screen share. Stop video left paren Alt plus V right paren button. Live transcription left paren closed captioning right paren.
And now you should be seeing my
And
screen.
I just want to do a sound check. If someone can verbalize and let me know if you can see the video okay and hear the video.
Yes, we can.
Awesome, thank
Yes.
you. We can see your screen.
And hearing the audio. So if you want to know what JAWS is saying, there's a text thing. I think it's on the top of the screen, right?
It is.
So you can read what it's saying at any point. I did try and slow my speech down, but sometimes electronic speech is hard to understand. So let's go to the desktop by pressing Windows D. We're going to take a little quiz. So in D2L. So probably look familiar, but I'm going to press Windows D.
Folder view list view. Google Chrome 3 of
And then
24.
We're already on Google Chrome, so I'm going to press enter.
Who's using Chrome? Who's using Chrome? 2 headings and
And I have to pick my profile.
open student.l. New tab dash Google Chrome.
And we're going to go to,
distancelearning.elgin.edu. Selected.
I just typed a D and it autofilled it.
Elgin Community Table. Column 3, row 4. Col 3, row 4.
I'm going to type my username.
Col 1, row 2. Password code.
And
Username.
at any time, I can actually read this username on my Braille display, by the way. Oh, you can see it on the screen, but
Password : password edit.
cool. So now I'm going to type my password.
Blank. 2 frames, 8 regions, 6 headings and 9 links.
So now I can actually press the letter B to go to the
Skip to main. Select a course.
select a course button.
Home page dash.
Press this
Skip to main. Navigation
project,
region.
and oops.
Select a course. Banner region.
There we go. Now we can press L to
Visited
go
link,
by
see-
link. So I land on the CTE faculty training course. Press enter.
CTE faculty training on students with.
And
Select a course.
I'm going to press
Link
L to go
content.
by link again.
Linked. Visited link quizzes. Banner region. Navigation region. List with 9 items. Quizzes link. Home page.
What we're doing here is we're just navigating by the various HTML elements. So links, buttons, headings, if you're familiar with those.
Quiz list heading level 1.
We'll go by heading, quiz list.
Link demo of Dragon. Link demo of
We're
JAWS
going
and
to go to the demo of JAWS and refreshable Braille quiz and press enter.
main region. Current quizzes. Col 1 row 4. Demo of JAWS and
And now we can just down arrow basically
of
to
2
read it. So
visited link quiz list. Summary current page. List end. Breadcrumb navigation. Heading level 1 summary actions for summary. Listen to this page. Open/clip. Heading level 2 quiz details. Current time. 9:45 a.m. Link update. Current user, Josh Wines. Time allowed.
I'm gonna go kind of fast
Unlimited
here.
lab attempts. Allow head before you submit the quiz. You will have the opportunity. Quiz start quiz button.
I could have pressed B to do that as well, but you can just to show you can read the directions.
Main region. Start quiz button. Summary dash demo
Right
of JAWS.
there. And it lands right on question 1. Pretty cool.
Listen to this page. Opens JAWS is a group start quiz. JAWS is a screen reading software.
So JAWS is a screen reading
Group
software.
start true radio button not
That's
checked.
true. So I'm gonna use the arrow keys to go to the true button, and then I'm gonna press the space bar to check it.
Main region. Main content frame.
Stop speech control.
False radio button. Group end. Heading level 2 question 2 left paren 1 point right
And
paren.
then question
Listen to
2.
this page. Open slash. It is important to include the following when creating an accessible document: Group start question 2 alternative text radio button not checked.
Text, yeah,
1
I
of
can do
1.
that.
Alternative text. Descriptive hyperlinks radio button not
Descriptive
checked.
hyperlinks, those are important
Descriptive
too.
all of the above radio button not checked.
So I'm
1 of
gonna
1.
I'm gonna check the all of the above option with the space bar.
Question 2 options group. All of the above. Group and blank. Separator. Submit quiz button.
And that's it. So there's the submit quiz button. I'm gonna press enter on that.
Submit quiz button. Quiz content heading level 2. Main region. Main content frame. Quiz content frame. Quiz content heading level 2. 5 frames. 6 region.
And there we go. Oh no, you have to.
Heading level 2. You are about to submit your quiz. Once you press the submit quiz button, you cannot return to your quiz separator. Submit quiz button.
And I'm pretty sure we're good here. So I'm gonna press the submit button.
Processing. Quizzes CTE faculty training on students with disabilities Elgin Community College.
And there we go. There's a brief demo of how a blind person could take a quiz using the screen reading software and their keyboard.
So Josh, if you'd like to share with us about what preferences that you have regarding accessibility.
Sorry about my connection. Sorry about my connection issues there. Audio flaked out for a while, so I'm downstairs. My accessibility preferences, of course, it's important to use the correct headings. So I have a better idea of what's going on. As you saw in the demo, it's easier to navigate documents that have headings. It's important to include, so if you have an image, oh yeah, so I prefer Word documents. Word tends to be really accessible, and of course it has all the information that you typed in, so it's easy to read. Sometimes like something like a PDF, it might just be an image and you can't really read those. So of course it's important if you have a picture, an image, to include alt text, which I think we're going to talk about later, but it's basically a description of what the image is for the screen reader. So yeah, if you don't include the alt text, it's just sometimes it'll just say image, or it'll read like a file name, or it's just a bunch of gibberish. So you want to put that in there. So if you're going to do a presentation, it's really nice if I have a copy of it, preferably beforehand, in preferably Word or PowerPoint or something editable. I can't access, so even if you like share your screen on a Zoom meeting, there's no way for me to access that. So even if it's online, I still need a copy. So make the document layout as simple as possible. Try not to use like too many tables or like crazy formatting stuff. And I prefer a vertical layout. So as you saw in the demo, you'll use like the down arrow key a lot to navigate through. That goes by line. So if everything's on the same line, it makes it more difficult to read. So this is a good example of how you would put your choices. So it says what is today's date, and then the choices are all on separate lines. That's really easy for me to navigate. That's a bit about my preferences.
Thank you, Josh, for sharing about your experiences. Now we're going to open it up to both Jess and Josh. So first off, Jess, how does your assistive technology help you?
So as I mentioned in the video that you guys saw, my assistive technology helps me complete assignments that I wouldn't normally be able to complete by myself. I'm like any other student and I'm expected to complete my own work. My family doesn't help me. I'm expected to do everything independently. They have their own lives. I have my own life. So, yeah.
Josh?
Josh, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. So I basically use a computer to access all printed materials. So it's important for me to be able to use a computer. And so JAWS basically reads what's on the screen and allows me to navigate that to answer, do assignments and participate in class in real time.
The next question, what happens when your assistive technology isn't working?
So I'm out of luck until I fix it again. Like, this is my main way to complete assignments. It's my only way right now to do it independently. Yes, Google and Word have like their own assistive technology, like speech to text, but it's not the same. So until I figure out how to fix the problem, and it's mainly me that's trying to fix the problem, I'm out of commission.
Josh?
Similar answer for me. I can't really do anything or participate in class if JAWS isn't working because I use a computer for everything. So I basically have to stop and fix it.
So you both have to do a lot of troubleshooting.
Yes.
Yes.
The next question, is your assistive technology compatible with all websites, documents, and other content on the computer?
No, mine's not. It's most compatible with Word, and then if I'm trying to use it on a D2L discussion post, it freezes sometimes, or it has to pull up a different text box and then transfer later, which messes up the formatting. So it's not really friendly with everything. It's just really friendly with Word.
Josh?
No, JAWS does not work with everything. So for documents that have, it can't read images, and it also programs and like apps and websites need to follow some specific accessibility standards and guidelines in order for JAWS to work properly with them.
The next question, how do your accommodations, which pertain to your assistive technology, support you in your schoolwork? Jess?
So I get extra time, and it is because of my dragon when there's a written portion. And as you saw, that takes extra time to correct because most of the errors, it doesn't come up as needing to be fixed, and I need to do it manually. So it takes more time, and I need to make sure I have enough time to be able to submit it.
Josh?
I also get extra time. As you might have seen in the demo, I have to use a lot of keyboard commands and like different things. So that can usually take extra time. I'm also allowed to use a computer for everything, even like assignments that you would traditionally do on papers. So, if I couldn't do that, it would be really difficult for me to do things like in real time.
Our next question, what are some things that your instructors have implemented in their courses that have helped you better utilize your assistive technology?
what my instructors have done is mainly put the information like the syllabus and any other handouts that we might need in Word or in PDFs, so that way I can easily edit it with my Dragon and make it the font that I need to see it and the text size to see it. So Word documents have really helped me.
Josh?
So I've had a similar, I've had professors that have distributed Word copies of assignments for me. Sometimes they're not on D2L, so they'll just email them to me directly. And make sure that I have copies of the presentations. I've also had some instructors that have just like given everyone the extra time to do, like, especially for online assignments, like if it was 1 hour before, they'll just make it 2. And then, I don't know, I feel less left out that way. That's kind of cool.
And our last question, what advice do you have for instructors, staff, administrators, and the community at large?
The advice I have is to not assume and just to ask. I find that many times, like the instructors that I've had either don't know what like a certain accommodation is for me, or they just assume that it works for me because it worked for a previous student that they had. Just to ask. I'd rather you just ask and, you know, not have to guess.
And Josh?
I really like that. Also, I think a lot of accessibility is just like not making things harder for people. So a lot of accessibility is making things flexible. So part of the reason that I prefer Word docs is because I can just take it and format it however I want to make it easier to navigate. So really just make things like flexible and easy to work with, so that I can change it to view it in the way that I want. So be flexible, I guess. And that can go to things like assignments too. Like if I don't put something in the right font, like it might take someone who can see 3 seconds to change the font, but it might take me a lot longer, so I might not have done it. So flexibility, I think, is key.
I'm so appreciative of both Jess and Josh's time in joining us today and participating in these demonstrations and sharing their experiences with navigating D2L using their specific assistive technology. Thank you, Jess and Josh. And now I'm going to turn it over to Bhumika, who will be giving us some tips on how we can create accessible materials.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen okay?
We can.
Okay. I am Bhumika Bergman. I am a digital accessibility developer in the web services team. I work on the website and document accessibility for our LGNEDU site and also the My LGNEDU, which is our intranet. Today, I'm going to cover basic tips for accessibility that you can use in your documents or websites or any digital content that you work on. And before we get started, I'm going to cover a lot of information today. I just want to point out that all this information is available on our accessibility page on our LGNEDU website. Okay, according to Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, your digital content should be perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. Everyone should be able to perceive your content. You can ask yourself questions like, if you have a video, does your video have captions or transcripts? Or do your images have alt text or not? And your content should be accessible with keyboard or mouse sticks or different type of accessible, different types of assistive technologies. And another question you can ask yourself is your content understandable by different audience? Is the reading order correct? Is navigation in your website predictable? Can people whose first language is not English, are they able to understand your content or not? And the next principle would be your your content should be robust, as in it should be accessible on different devices with different screen sizes and platform. This applies mostly to the websites. Today, I will cover these 7 basic tips to create your accessible content. I will go over accessible text, headings, alternative text, hyperlinks, lists, tables, and accessibility checkers. So first, let's look at accessible text. I want to cover 4 basic principles that we can cover. Those are readability, understandability, abbreviations, and conveying information in multiple ways. So when it comes to readability, there are multiple factors you can account. They are the font size, font styles, line spacing, which is the space between the text, and the color contrast. Now I'm going to show you a few examples. So when it comes to font size and font style, use fonts that are more readable, like Arial, Calibri, or any of the serif fonts. For example, the example on the left is much more readable than the example on the right, which uses more condensed fonts and cursive fonts. And for your content, try to use font size of 12 minimum or 14 if you can. And when it comes to readability, line spacing is also important. The example on the left is much more readable because the line spacing is proper. And the example on the right has line spacing of 0.5. So all the text is crunched up together and it is hard to read. And the next thing is color contrast. So make sure when you choose your colors, it's readable. For example, the text on the left is much more readable than the text on the right, because the text on the right, we have the black text on maroon color, which is hard to read. And when it comes to understandability, remember that you have audience that comes from diverse culture and backgrounds. For example, people whose first language is not English, they may not be able to understand your content. So try to use simple words, avoid complex words if possible. For example, the example on the left that says use this document for academic purposes only is much more understandable than example on the right, which says use this voluminous document for didactic purposes only. They are conveying the same meaning, but the example on the left is much more understandable. Now let's look at abbreviations. When it comes to abbreviation, try to write the whole word out. For example, if you are saying World Health Organization, you want to say the whole word instead of saying WHO, because the screen readers will just say WHO. And the same thing with dates and days. Instead of saying Mon Supt 2022, write out the whole date. Say that says Monday, September 20, 2022. And when it comes to conveying information, try to do it in multiple ways. Don't use shape alone to convey the information. For example, here I have the example on the left with 2 rectangles that are red and green, and they say the words red and green. An example on the right, I have same rectangles, but it does not say the words red and green. So audience who may have color blindness for red and green, they won't be able to tell the difference. So use the text and the shape both to convey information. Here is an example of inaccessible pie chart. Because there are no legends and the people with color blindness won't be able to associate the legends at the bottom with the information in the chart. And here's the example of the same pie chart, but it is accessible because the text is showing exactly where text is right where the shape is. So they will know that all the percentages are correct and this is much more readable and understandable. And when you add charts or graph, try to add a data table below. We have this feature in Microsoft PowerPoint where you can add a table below your chart or graph if possible. So because the screen reader won't be able to understand just the chart by itself, but the screen reader will be able to read the table. Okay, and now let's look at headings. Think of headings as headlines in the newspaper. You look at a newspaper and you can scan the whole newspaper just by reading the headlines. That it works the same way for screen readers. They can access all the headings in your document or a web page. That's why it is important that your heading structure is correct. So heading 2, for example, should follow heading 1. Heading 3 should follow heading 2. Heading 4 should follow heading 3. That's much more proper structure, and screen reader will be able to tell each heading and what the headings are. And heading on the right-hand side, there is a bad example where heading 3 follows heading 1 and heading 6 follows heading 3, which is much more confusing for screen reader users. Also, another thing is that don't look at headings as a way to give style to your text. Think of headings as they are headlines in the newspaper. And in Microsoft Word and PowerPoint, you can customize heading styles. So you can choose all the font colors and size that you would prefer. Okay, now let's look at alternative text. Alternative text is what describes an image. For visual readers, we can look at the image and understand what the image is about. But people who are using screen readers, alternative text is very important because that's how they will know what the image is about. So without the alt text, the image on the left, the screen reader will read the whole file name, including the symbols, which is much more frustrating. And the screen reader users won't be able to tell what the image is about at all. So if you add the alt text, the screen reader users will read the alt text out loud. And there are a few alt text tips I want to share. Keep your alt text clear and concise, and you can avoid image off and picture of words because the screen reader will announce that it's an image. And avoid images with text in them because the screen reader won't be able to read the text inside the images. But if you do have an image with the text in them, you want to write that text in the alt text field so you can convey the meaning of that image. And if you have a background image or you have shapes and things like that, just for decorative purposes, you can mark them as decorative. You do have this option in the Microsoft Office products where you access the alt text. It will give you an option to mark that image as a decorative. Okay, now let's look at the hyperlinks. Hyperlink is basically a piece of text that links to another file or web page or any other digital content. When you look at hyperlink, for example, for the first hyperlink, you can see the whole URL. Try to avoid the whole URL if possible because the screen reader will read out each letter and symbol out loud. And you can imagine how frustrating it would be to read the whole thing in one sitting and the users will not know where the page is taking them. On the other hand, this second example that says to learn more, visit Elgin Community College Procedures webpage is much more accessible because the users will know that if they click on this link, it's going to take them to a web page and it's going to be Elgin Community College Procedures webpage. So convey exactly where the link will take the users. And here's the second example. Try to avoid click here and learn more words because it won't tell the users where it's being taken. Instead, write out exactly the link is taking the users. For example, here for the academic calendar, we have the hyperlink that says 2023 to 2024 academic calendar -PDF that will tell the users that if they click on this link, it's going to open up a PDF file. And here is another example for the hyperlink. Try to avoid email us when you write out the hyperlink because sometimes the email us could be a link to a contact form or it could be an email and there is no way to tell. So instead, if you have an email, you can just write the whole email in the hyperlink so the users will know that if they click on this, it may open the Outlook or Gmail email with that email address. Okay, now let's look at lists. Lists are used to organize information. If you If the order matters, use the number list. And if the order doesn't matter, you can use the bulleted list. For example, we have on the left here, strawberry banana smoothie example, which is number list. It's organized very well, and it's much more readable and scannable. But the example on the right is not readable or scannable, and it will confuse the screen reader users because we have the number list with dashes and bulleted list, everything in the same level, which will confuse the screen reader users. The reason why is when a screen reader encounters a list, it will tell the users that this is a list and there are these 4 items in the list. So it will tell the users how many items are in the list. And if you mix and match the list, it will be very confusing. Now let's look at tables. Tables are used to represent tabular data. Use tables only if necessary. And if you use a table, try to keep your table simple. Simple tables are tables with 1 column and 1 row header. And try to avoid the complex tables. Complex tables are tables with multiple header rows, multiple header columns, or merged cells. Here is an example of a complex table. Here we have 3 header rows and we have merged cells. And as you can see, this is very hard to read, and this will be hard to read even for screen readers because they read out each cell and the associated headers with them. Now, this is the same table revamped into a simple table. As you can see, it's much more easier to scan. It has 1 column header and 1 row header, and the screen reader will read each cell and the headers associated with them. And now I just want to touch a little bit over the accessibility checkers. Microsoft Office products and Google products have automated accessibility checkers available that you can use. Just to note that the accessibility checkers will not pick up all the accessibility issues. There are a lot of issues that you will have to check manually. For example, heading levels. It won't tell you if you're missing a heading level. If you have a heading 1 and heading 3 and you're missing heading 2, it won't tell you that. So you will have to check that manually. And same thing with alt text. It will tell you if the alt text is missing, but it won't tell you if the alt text is meaningful. So for that, you will have to check the document manually. And the same thing for images with text in them. It won't tell you that, hey, this image is inaccessible because there's a text. You will have to check that manually. And in the Microsoft Word, you can access the accessibility checkers through the review tab. And there's a button that says check accessibility, and you can run that and it will tell you all the issues that are available in your document. You can click on each issue and it will tell you why and how to fix them. Okay. And if you're more interested, we have upcoming accessibility workshops about how to make your Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Google Docs, and Google Slides accessible. And we also cover the captions on Zoom and YouTube, and you can RSVP through the eTalent. Yeah. Anyone have any questions?
We have some really great questions in the chat. So the first question is for Jess. Does Dragon usually type your words correctly? How often do you have to make those corrections, and do you have to manually find those errors to correct?
So what's nice about Dragon is as you use it more and more time, it learns your voice from your documents. So when I first start out with like a new user profile where I just programmed it, yes, I have to correct the words a lot because it'll like put 2 and 2, like if I mean to type out the number 2, it might put like TO, or so I have to fix that kind of stuff, but normally it fixes itself.
The next question is also for you, Jess. Is the issue with the HTML zoom with D2L, or is PDF/Word a preference overall, no matter what site you visit?
PDF and Word is a preference overall. Yeah.
And then we had a question about how does the screen reader know it is a hyperlink and can be clicked on? Does it read hyperlink? And Josh, you're welcome to chime in. Maureen commented in the chat that most screen readers say link before each link.
Yeah, you can also navigate by link. So if I know that I'm looking for a specific link, I can find it. There's a keyboard command for it.
And will it show up as a list of links?
Yeah, you can put them in a list, or you can just navigate through the document.
And then Maureen also posted in the chat about the link that all of you can click on to access all of the content and tutorials that Bhumika has put on our ECC webpage. So we'd like to open up the floor for any other questions that you may have for any of us.
I'll share something. This is Tyler. That's not a question, but just things that are sticking with me that were shared. So Josh, you shared accessibility being about flexibility. And so to me, that seems so significant. So that was really helpful to hear. That seemed like a very strong running theme throughout a lot of what was shared. And Jess, you're mentioning that you prefer that faculty ask questions rather than making assumptions. I think that's something that's sticking with me as well. So thank you both very much for sharing those things. Those are really, really helpful points to think about.
And I also think it was helpful to hear two different perspectives, just to emphasize that everyone is different as far as what their disability is and what their preferences are for accessibility. So Josh and Jess shared their preferences, but other students may have other tips that they like to share about their specific needs. I would like to share our contact information. So if you do have any questions about Josh's and Jess's assistive technology, they've agreed that you may contact them. So Josh's email address is listed on the screen. It's jweinstock3356@student.elgin.edu. And Jess Heiser, her email address is jheiser2094@student.elgin.edu. If you have any questions regarding student accommodations, you're always welcome to contact me. My email address is PSandPeter@elgin.edu. And then if you have any questions about website and document accessibility, you're welcome to contact Bhumika at BBERGMAN@elgin.edu. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. I appreciate your time on this Thursday afternoon. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.